I didn't see that happening here. The conscience of the people about these problems has to be arisen by you, by the press. You have an obligation to bring it up. And so thank you very much for doing it today. And we will continue. I think I can speak on behalf of some of my colleagues. We will continue to watch. And we know, as the gentleman was highlighting, there is legislation in Zambia. But what about the enforcement? That is the word. That's a key word, not just on this particular issue, but I think on a lot of issues that concern the development of this nation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Any questions from the media? Okay. Okay, one. Okay, we'll take that one and then we'll go back to just another question for the panel. Yes, and then we'll get back to the media. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Just one question also for the collision. Assuming that your proposals on restoration, screening of affected people, and implementation of the contamination tools is not met, are you considering to take legal action on behalf of the community, like it happened in Chibola when the Bushman stream was affected? Thank you.
All right. Okay, there's another hand, so we could just take the last question there.
Good morning. Oscar Chapanka from Prime TV. I would like to get from the panelists some of the short-term measures as we are looking into maybe getting the renegotiation or reassessment of the compensation. What short-term measures should we be looking at in terms of the people who are around that particular area? Because in one of those advisories, like the one from the US, they're saying you are advising people to actually stay away from the contaminated areas for up to 24 kilometers, if I have it correctly. That's like 15 miles. So for those who are staying in those areas or the communities camped around those areas, probably they do not have any other place to move to. So what short-term measures would you suggest that we look into? Thank you.
All right, our panel, feel free to take the questions. Let's just be short and sweet with the answers. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll start with the second question. I'll answer from my end, and I'll allow my colleagues to finish because it's such a broad topic. So we asked what the short-term measures should be while we wait for the reassessment of the compensation. First of all, I would like to say that it's a tragedy, and I say this with utmost sincerity, that it's a tragedy that we got to learn about a compensation package through a press, I think it was a press conference from the government. And we have a community member right here. The members of the community were not part of the negotiation of that compensation package. So as we see today, nobody knows what parameters or what criteria was being used to calculate that compensation package, which is very sad. And that is why we are calling for a reassessment, which is transparent. I think when this disaster happened, we were told that an independent company was going to come and assess the damage, and that the findings will be made public. 4 months down the line, I am yet to see that report. I don't know if anyone in here has seen it. If they have, they can share it. But we have not seen it. The only thing we were told was that there was a 16 million kwacha compensation package, which we do not know where it came from. So, what is the short-term measure? I think we need to go back to the drawing board and start doing things correctly. I think this whole issue has been mishandled. That is my sincere analysis, and as a concerned citizen, I think this issue has been mishandled. We need to go back to the drawing board and do things properly. The community member here has spoken that there hasn't been any analysis of the extent of the health of the people. That is primary concern because we are dealing with human lives here. No one has bothered to check. So I think we need to start from there and check to say how far has the contamination gone to the people in that area. The US government has advised its citizens to stay 24 kilometers away. How about our citizens who are right there in the vicinity of the area? Are they not people? Are they not human beings? So we need to think about that. All of us, the responsibility is on all of us who belongs to this country. And then you asked if we are considering any legal action. Should our, should I call it our plea? I don't want to call it a demand. Should our plea for a more open process, a more transparent process, and a reassessment of whatever compensation package was announced? Yes, litigation is always on the table because the law allows every person in this country to take out an action in defense of the environment. So my answer to that is a simple yes. But at this point, and since the disaster happened, we have been trying to see or to keep the door open to more, should I say, more consultative and more collective uh, response to this situation. And unfortunately, what has been happening is that the mining companies have decided to cut everyone out, and they've just decided to talk to the government alone, as if it is the government that is affected. But the truth of the matter, as my colleague here said, is that the first point of call is the community, and there is no response to a community problem that can happen without the community itself.
All right. I'll speak to the first question. If nothing happens, what are we going to do? To begin with, I think it would be a betrayal to the people. And it being a betrayal, I think that we've already been challenged. That I think we need to step up in terms of calling out inaction, calling out irresponsible decisions, calling out irresponsible practices. And so I think the onus would be on us to continue pushing this issue, and the media should help us to bring these things out there when we call out the people that are supposed to act. I think that when people speak, it's just good practice that you respond. If you don't have the capacity, there is no shame in saying, yes, we've heard, but we do not have the capacity. It's from that response that support or assistance from others comes in. But at the end of the day, the effort is to ensure that the people are given what they deserve, the people are respected, the dignity of the people is ensured. So yes, we'll continue talking, but the responsibility and the shame will be on the duty bearers that need to make sure that these things do not happen.
Right.
Yeah, just as a rider to what my colleagues have spoken to, I think we have an opportunity as a country really to strengthen our national laws. And as part of the technical working group that is developing the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights, we have just finished our national consultations on developing, on consulting communities within Zambia in terms of, with a view of strengthening our national laws that relates to business and human rights. So we have an opportunity because when you look at the United Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, the state has a duty to protect human rights. The corporations who are multinationals have a duty to respect human rights. communities need to have access to effective remedy. Under those pillars, fundamentally important, we are cognizant of the fact that we have not gotten there as a country, and as part of the team, we are hoping that we sometime this year, we would be able to come up with a national action plan that speaks to national law, in terms of strengthening our national laws.
Okay, so this is a question for you, Mr. Cesar David, and could you just, could this damage spread further or become permanent? And why is it urgent to clean up the environment now and monitor it in the long term? What strong environmental rules are needed?
First and foremost, I've just spoken to a very fundamental aspect that looks at strengthening our national laws. It is important, therefore, that even as we look at these regulated failures that we've spoken to, we need to get to a drawing board to have laws that are very strong. Because if you're looking at, for example, issues around compensation, Maluli did speak to the issue of how they arrived at that. There was no consultation, there was no involvement of the communities. If we don't have strong laws that speaks to that, corporate or multinationals have understood or studied our national laws in terms of their weaknesses, and they are getting away with this corporate impunity. It is imperative, therefore, that we all come together as nationals to ensure that we rally behind all these processes that we're doing. The coalition is doing a lot of great work individually and collectively to ensure that we get to a point where we have laws that protect communities, but also ensure that multinationals operate in a manner that respects the rights of communities.
All right. So with that one, we'll still, I think, throw it over to the audience, and this also includes our audience online. So we'll take questions from the audience. We'll take about 3. Okay, 4. All right. So yes. So that was the first hand from back there. So we could take that one first.
Okay, so this is from the audience online, and it's coming from Saba Kennedy. So he's asking, what more can Zambia do to attract responsible investment?
All right.
Sorry, this is not really a question, but a point of debate. Because we know with climate change that there will be a scramble for particular minerals that Zambia is very rich on. And the government also has this goal of increasing copper mining and other mining of other minerals. But at the moment, we can still mine in environmental protected areas. We have ZEMA and we have the environmental impact assessments, but I have been involved in environmental impact assessments myself, and we do know there is a big lack of stakeholder consultation even from the start. So what we are discussing now is how do we react to when something has happened. But actually, the discussion should also go about how can we even start from point 0 when we have to decide, are we going to mine, and where are we going to mine, and how are we going to mine. We know there's mining in forest protected areas, we know there's mining at the banks of rivers, we know there's a lot of gold mining and pollution. We saw the images on social media of cattle and dying and people using contaminated water. So instead of being reactive, we have to be proactive. How are we going to do that? That is one of the debates we still have to have. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Wina Wina. I'm the CEO for Soil First Zambia Limited. I think for me it's not a question, it's my statement. And the statement basically that other country, I think Zambia is close to getting to be ashamed of itself. You know, at this age, when we have a spill, we have a damaged situation like this, we have to wait for a foreign international company to come and assess it. Then they are booked in hotels, and then they have the consultants, and then from there they get 4x4s, go on site, spend 3 weeks. As a country, we need to put mechanisms which will work immediately. Okay? The spill is done, Zema goes in. What does Zema do? Has it got a budget? Does Zema have a budget for spills in their organization? If not, is the person who is deemed responsible? Can they be identified quickly? Are they paying? How much are they paying? Everything is centered around paying the people whose land and livelihood have been affected. But the spillage and the damage is continuing as we speak. The soil is being degraded. And those people, as mentioned by other former speakers, they're alive, they're in alien pollutants. Maybe if they still have gardens, some kind of small gardens, they're eating that pollutants through the plants they're eating. If they're drawing water in deep wells, they're still getting affected. So I think my last point is that we need a quick response plan in conjunction with an association like this esteemed one, this coalition, in conjunction with government and stakeholders such as Zema, where very quickly when things happen, things are put in place. Who's responsible? What's happening? We don't need international companies to come and test our soils. We've got NRC here, we've got ZARI, we've got testing machines all over the place. Let's test the soil. How much acid is in there? Get the report within hours. It's been 4 months, as mentioned. This is when we're getting the report from a dear foreign country which is concerned. Thank you.
All right. So we'll take 2 more questions, then have a response, and we'll get back to
Good
more
morning.
questions.
Good morning again, and thank you, panelists. My question is on the studies. I believe there are several studies that are being done by individuals and different entities. Is there a way, as a coalition, that we can consolidate the findings? Sorry. Is there a way we can consolidate the findings that are being the findings of the studies that are being undertaken? I believe there are studies that are particularly focusing on the impacts of the pollution to wildlife. Most of the studies presented here are speaking to the human health and the livelihoods, but I believe there are studies that also are focusing on the impacts of this pollution to wildlife. And when it comes to taking legal action, I think these studies will be very important to quantify the damage that has been caused. So is there a way that we can get these studies, the findings of these studies? Maybe this is already happening, and for those of us who don't know how we can contribute, what are the channels that we can contribute the findings of our studies to quantify the damage? Thank you.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike from Akshana, Zambia. And following on my questions and probably my concerns, I'll still re-echo what Ambassador Enrico commented on and his worry. The first one is, based on these findings, are we being able to, first of all, take stock of the assessments that are done by the Mining Safety Department, because they do regular checks on the tailing dams. We tried to look at the past 1 year or the past 2 years of the reports and the person that has been approving those reports. I'm saying this is because Romzin came into play after an aerial assessment that showed that there was a leakage. So in other words, there were colleagues that went there physically underground to see, and they couldn't tell. And it had to take an aerial survey to see where the spillage from Romzin was coming from. I did not for that. We wouldn't have captured that. So the question is, to what extent are these assessments revealing such kind of things? Because what I'm saying is, the current status is just one case. There are a number of mushrooming minings that we have. The next might happen elsewhere. The question is, how proactive are we on that? The second part is on the cleaning process. So according to the humanitarian and emergency standards, is that when an emergency happens, and especially when we're talking about heavy metals, the longer it takes to clean, the more the metals will stay in the what? In the environment. And the more the metals stay in the environment, the more damage they'll cause. And therefore the cost of cleaning up goes up. To what extent, first of all, the mining itself, based on the assessments, are proactively involved in the cleaning process. Secondly, if you are still waiting for the consultant to do a research study, what if these metals are still in the environment and the community continue to be affected? The grave impact is what has happened so far in Kafue that we'll be talking about now in Champishi. To what extent can we do that? The last question is, I want to ask Council, you've said you've been using an approach of engaging dialogue, and we've been trying to discuss on how we can reach a consensus on how to deal with this issue. And now, the mining has cut off everyone to engage. Don't you think that that's a clear indication that we must use alternative options? And I would strongly be biased to the colleague that previously said, don't you think it's high time that we launched a legal action to really bring the first of all, the companies to book, and again compel the Zambian government to act on this issue urgently? Thank you so much.
All right, panelists, it's your time to respond.
Okay, thank you very much for the concerns that have been raised, particularly in terms of how can we be more alert in terms of responding to these damages that come as a result of dam collapse, discharge of effluents into the water bodies. Well, I think that from our angle as a women rights organization, we have done quite well in terms of training environmental human rights defenders. And essentially, this is a very important process of capacity strengthening of communities with a view of alerting us in terms of what is happening, but also having the ability on their own to determine the damages that are happening in the community where we may not have an office. So it could be the use of video footage through a mobile phone, and I think this helped or became quite handy in terms of us designing interventions to respond to the collapse of the dam, and we quickly mobilized and went onto the ground to engage first of all the communities. But also you must realize that this is not an easy undertaking. State institutions, some of them are captured. I mean, I'm one of the persons who was literally locked up when we went to engage communities on this dam collapse for literally being at the police for more than 4 hours, literally detained. And that also tells you that it's not a walk in the park. It requires for us also to evolve in terms of how responsive we become to those issues and not being reactive, like she has alluded to. I think that we need to be more proactive. And then our proactiveness all lies with how we can cooperate with like-minded institutions in terms of designing interventions, but also how we pass that information to communities. In terms of the how long this discharge of heavy metals stays in the environment and the bigger the damage, I can't agree more with you, Michael. That is essentially what it is. But like I alluded to, these are not easy processes to undertake. Like my sister there mentioned, you need a multifaceted skill set to look at, for example, soil tests, aquatic life, and many other things. For you to have a very strong case to build up, for you to go the route of litigation. I'll not speak to that and provide an opportunity for my colleagues to speak.
there is a suggestion from the lady there that there is need for us to do a comprehensive analysis of the impact of this situation. I can't agree more to that suggestion, but I think that even when we talk about compensation, you need to understand the extent of the impact. And that actually goes to agree with your suggestion that maybe we need to go deeper and not only focus on the impact on the people, but also impact on the environment and other living organisms that depend on the environment. But more importantly, for us that are doing advocacy, I think it will strengthen our case. And when we are engaging responsible people, we actually guide and give valuable input in ensuring that we restore or we deal with the problem. The issue around excluding communities in the conversation, I think that is very suspicious. And we can't sit back and allow that to go on. It is a known fact that communities, regardless of their technical incapability, they are key stakeholders. And in one way or the other, you need to create space for them to voice out on issues that concern them. We are doing a number of interventions in the extractive industry and mining, and we've seen that this can work. We create spaces for conversation between communities, mining operators, and government. And through those conversations, we are seeing progressive measures arising from those conversations. So we can't underestimate the voice of the community. We need to create that space. And for us as a civil society organization, we can facilitate that. And maybe that is a call to us to ensure that we create the platforms for these conversations. There was an issue around it goes to the same thing around transparency. Maybe let me talk about generally public affairs management. I think there is a growing concern over unnecessary opacity in the conversations around public affairs management. I'll give you an example. We wanted to start an intervention with a defense wing in this country. The intervention was to promote integrity in defense procurement. And right from the first meeting, we were told that that was impossible because us as non-state state actors have no right to have access to records concerning defense. Maybe that is correct. But what if the question was for us to have access to records that have to do with a football club sponsored by a defense wing? Is that still confidential? So I think we need to have deeper conversations and not hide in this issue of confidentiality. It's an issue of good governance to ensure that to the extent possible, we provide necessary information to other stakeholders, especially non-state actors, for constructive and responsible conversation between the governors and those that are governed.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, I'll briefly respond to what questions came. Kennedy said, what can Zambia do to attract responsible investment? I think the answer to that is very simple. We need to start being serious, and we need to start loving our country a bit more. That's my simple answer to that. Because There's a saying in English that when the cat is away or when the cat is sleeping, the mouse play. So these investors are here to make money. They are not here for anything else. So if they find any loophole that they can exploit, they will exploit it. And you can't blame them for that. We blame ourselves because we are the ones who went to sleep. So if we want investors to be serious, I mean, this is not the only country where mining happens. It's not. It's not the only country in the world where mining happens. But why is it that mining disasters keep happening over and over and over again on our turf? Then it's an indictment on ourselves that we are not serious about our regulatory framework. We are not serious about how we handle investors. We reduce ourselves, for lack of a better term, I'm sorry to say this, we reduce ourselves to beggars instead of partners. We want to look so desperate for investment that we're willing to turn our country into a wasteland. So it starts from there. If we want investors to be serious, we should start by being serious ourselves. Because as we speak right now, we don't know whether Sino Metals is operating or not. Does anyone here know? We don't know, right? That's how serious it is. But we were told that Sino Metals was closed after the disaster, right? The leach plant was closed in February. This is June. We don't know. There hasn't been any feedback after that to say after Sino Metals closed, this is what has happened. Now they've been allowed to, you might be shocked that they've been allowed to start working again. I will not be shocked. But talking about seriousness, like what Caesar said, I'll combine it with the question that she said, our sister over there, she said, can we consolidate the studies? Can we put them together? And to echo what my colleague Caesar said, these are not easy undertakings. Sometimes they are dangerous. There are people who have been arrested for simply visiting Sino Metals. I'm a lawyer. I can go into a prison and see someone who has been condemned to death. Even a prisoner is more free than this community member. And I'm saying this with utmost sincerity because we have been there and we have seen what the dangers are. Caesar and some other colleagues were detained for more than 4 hours for simply going to interact with the community. Right now, if any of you go there, I'm not sure if you will come back. I don't know. No, this is the truth. And this is very serious because if people are trying to put in interventions to help the community which is in need, then why should state institutions interfere with that? Why? That is an indictment, and as my colleague here from TIZ said, that there's unnecessary opacity in these things. Right? We were told that there is a report of compensation. I don't think it has been made public. No one has ever seen that report. It is only resident in the corridors of power, which is most unfortunate. Anyway, to respond to what Sandra said about we have a goal of increasing mining output, there's lack of stakeholder consultation in the EI process. I agree. When you look at any mine in this country, the law is very clear that before any mine or any mining operation commences, there must be an EIA that is done, environmental impact assessment. Right? And the EIA process is defined in the regulations, and public participation and stakeholder consultation are embedded in those regulations. However, the reality on the ground is most of us just wake up, tomorrow there's a mine next to us. We don't know where it came from. And if you go to Zema, they will tell you that they approved the mine. And the mine has all the documents, all the approvals, mine safety, Zema, everything. Purportedly that the EIA has happened. Now the question is, how did the EIA happen without the public knowing? Right. So our institutions are complicit in this. Right. For Sino Metals to start operating and for them to have that tailings facility, it had to go through an approval process. And there were institutions that checked their designs and approved them. That is the truth. If you go to them, they have all the documents. Now, why did their dam fail? if it was checked by our technocrats? Isn't it the job of technocrats? They have to check the integrity of those designs. Are they going to last before it even happens? So it means that, dare I say that, we need to change how our regulatory attitude is. To change it from just a mere box ticking, or should I say a fundraising effort. The investor comes, pays all the fees, okay, approve, without even checking. The question we should ask ourselves is that, are these EIAs really taking place? Is there really an environmental impact assessment happening? Or people just submit documents to the regulator and then the regulator just approves? And then we only find out about these faults when a disaster like this happens. We have tried to get the EIA for Sino Metals and for Jing from Zema. Up to now, we haven't gotten hold of it. Yet, the Constitution says that access to environmental information is a right to every member of the public. Any issue to do with the environment should be out in the public, but it is not. And getting hold of it is not an easy exercise. Maybe we need to change our regulatory attitude towards these things, because this environment belongs to every single Zambian in there. And then lastly, Michael, you asked, have we tried to look at these reports from the Mining Safety Department, and to what extent do these reports help? I think they are not helping, because if they were helping, this wouldn't have happened. That's my simple answer to that. So that means the question say, are they just reporting after checking, or they're just reporting because they have to report? And that is the thing that, as Zambian citizens, we have to be vigilant about and start checking these things. And we say, do you think it's high time we commence legal action? To commence legal action, you need to collect a lot of information. You need a lot of data, a lot of proof, or what they call evidence. And to be honest, collecting evidence on this case hasn't been the easiest. And salute to everyone who has tried at great risk. And I'm not saying this as an exaggeration. It's not an easy thing to get any sort of evidence about these cases because of what is happening down at the site. Those who have bothered to go there will know what I'm talking about. So we have faith that our government, at the end of the day, will do the right thing, which is to look out for its people. And its people are you and me. But we are trying to get whatever information we can get and offer whatever help we can offer to the communities within our competencies, with the attendant risks that are there. But yeah, we will try to play our part in helping the community. That's all I can say at this stage.
All right.